All right, I'm going to go over the three emotional compositions that I think are important for all photographers to understand, to be able to apply, and to really get a grasp of why shooting in this specific way, in this specific composition, actually affects and influences your ideal clients to book you. That's important, right? We want to understand that. And one way to do that is to shoot in a certain composition. So the three compositions that I'm going to go over are the three that can spark and create the emotion that you want your ideal clients to feel, and it can increase the chances of them booking you. Okay? So here are the three emotional compositions that I'm going to go over. The first one is the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds is the most common that you've seen and heard of in photography, and there's a reason why. The second one is center weighted, so putting your subject directly in the center. And then a creative composition. This is essentially where you're surprising and creating thought-provoking compositions there. Okay, so let me go over each of those real quick. So I'm going to give some tips here. Starting off, I'm going to be talking about the rule of thirds there. So when you're going for the rule of thirds and shooting with your camera, so instead of eyeballing it, try to use the guidelines in your camera. Okay, so many times photographers are challenged by actually seeing what's in front of them as if it was on the back of their camera. Okay, so your camera, your phone, whatever camera you're using, I guarantee you it has some guidelines on it that are actually going to show you the rule of thirds. And all you do is you make sure that your subject is in the crosshairs of one of those thirds. Okay, so it could be top left, it could be top right, it could be bottom left, it could be top right. It doesn't matter. That's the rule of thirds. It's very, very simple and easy to do. Okay, so use those guidelines. That's helpful. All right, editing for the rule of thirds. Even if you missed the rule of thirds shooting, and this is why I love Lightroom and I love editing, you can easily just go into the crop and straighten feature in Lightroom and crop it to where the photo is exactly, or the subject is exactly in one of the crosshairs. It's really, really simple to do. Okay, I like to shoot really wide, so I have the option to do that many times because I understand how important the rule of thirds is in my brand and in my photographs. Okay, so next tip I have on the rule of thirds is train your eye to see it in thirds. Okay, so if you've ever been around photographers who have been doing photography for a long time and you start talking to them about what they see when they shoot or how they get the shots they get, they actually will, more than likely, they'll tell you that whenever they're just walking around in their normal day-to-day life, they're actually seeing things as if they were on the back of the camera or maybe in print, right? So how can you frame what's in front of you in a way that will translate over into photography? Okay, so for example, when I'm walking around outside, maybe during my lunch break, I like to go take really long walks. Sometimes I'll see something that's really beautiful and then, I'll stop and observe it. And depending on what perspective I'm standing from or where I'm at or how far or how close I am, the feeling that I get of this beautiful hill covered in flowers is very, very different depending on my perspective. Okay, so what I like to do is I will physically move myself until I like the way it looks better. And I know that's weird, but it's one way that I train my eye to see in the rule of thirds. But also, really, it's not really just training your eye to see in the rule of thirds. It's really just moving subjects that are interesting around inside of the frame or your life so they're more enjoyable to people. Okay, that's really the bottom line here. All right, next one is center. So here's some center composition tips. So use the level inside of your camera or in Lightroom or just in the photo in some way to keep things level, okay? And for center weighted compositions, this is extremely important because people are easily going to be able to see when and if your subject is off kilter there, okay? So again, Lightroom, your camera, each depending on where you are, your photo might have a natural level like this one right here. So try to get your photos leveled as much as possible, and they're going to seem a lot more professional, and it's going to seem more intentional if you do that. Okay, you know, this photo, for example, was shot with a tilt shift up here at the top, and I straightened it for a good 5 minutes. I mean, it was a challenge to do it. So you can see there's some distortion. So it was a challenge to get them as level as I wanted them to. Okay. Next one is minimize unnecessary elements. Okay, when you're putting subjects directly in the center, it's very important that the outsides, the top and the bottom, are not going to take away from the viewer's eyes and pull them from the center of the frame and the screen. Okay, so minimize unnecessary elements. All right, so this one down here, I saw a couple days ago that this is a typo, but I think it's important to actually leave in. So just in the same way that you train your eye to see the rule of thirds, you actually really should be consistently training your eye to see in center weighted composition as well, right? I mean, we do this probably more than anything more naturally. When we're talking to someone, most of the time we're centering our bodies on theirs, especially if you're on like if you're interacting with somebody who is your partner or you're more romantic with, you're definitely facing them face on right in the center. So train your eye in a similar way to be able to experience and see life and see photos from center weighted compositions and compare them, you know, notice the feeling. I mean, I'm obsessed with photos that are center weighted like this, especially with couples. There's something very special about it. Okay. And I dig it. So finally, the creative composition tips. Now, these are the creative compositions are ones that basically just don't follow the rule of thirds or center weighted or any other traditional kind of compositional art inside of the frame, whether it's a photograph or a painting, whatever. Okay, so breaking the rule of thirds and the center weighted rule is a great way to have a creative composition. Okay, sometimes the rules should intentionally be broken in order to create a different feeling. Okay, so this is rule of thirds here, but it's obviously a very unorthodox photo. It's not the traditional rule of thirds that you're seeing, right? I've got half of her face cut off, so I mean she's kind of in the rule of thirds, but it's really just this part of her body. So this photo right here, I intentionally cropped it because of the way her arms are flowing in the movement. I thought that it was really important to have this space here. So I broke that rule, and she's not direct. She's kind of in the center, but she's not directly in the center, and she's kind of rule of thirds, but she's not directly rule of thirds. Okay, this adds interest to that photograph. So sometimes not having your photo straight and level like this one can surprise your audience. This was shot on a hill, so it made it a lot easier. So I did straighten this photo for several minutes to get the feel that I wanted to. But leveling your photo off kilter is a good way to be creative in your composition there. All right, finally, using the frame to creatively compose your photographs. This is a photo of someone playing an accordion, and during the shoot, I decided I was going to zoom in on the hands and the actual accordion, and it ended up being one of my favorite photographs from this shoot because I did that. And you know, you have these surprising, interesting human elements in the end, but then you also wonder, you know, what is this? And you have these really interesting lines. So all the photos where I zoomed out, they were interesting, but not quite as interesting as this for some reason, you know. It's not following any type of compositional rule. It's intentionally being broken, and you can feel that when you see it. Okay, so zooming in or cropping parts of your subject like I've done here is a great way to do that. Okay, so those are my 3 emotional compositions: the third, the center, and the creative. Go out and try them. And even if you can't go out and try them right now, just look around the room that you're sitting in and see if you can view things in compositional ways to start training your mind and your eye.